Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. We've got sneaky deaky changes coming into a lot of classes, and some of them may have just been annihilated, and other ones are very happy with them. This is very unusual that these changes come through after the Tuesday, at least so far from what I have seen, and they hotfix these onto the beta, so we're going to be able to check them out live as well. My stream linked in the description down below, and of course, as always, if you want to stay up to date with news related to World of Warcraft and content to help you increase your experience here with World of Warcraft, then make sure to smash the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. But let's get started here. Exterminate, yesterday you got nerfed. Today you're getting buffed. I don't know if somebody there at Blizzard is like pressing the nerf button on the wrong stuff and then it's getting reverted because there's a change here. These changes I'm reading right now happened like 4 hours ago, and then there was another set of changes like an hour later. So this one was another one of those examples. So Exterminate's getting reverted. However, Reaper's Mark specifically is still getting pretty significantly nerfed, and it seems like they're snipping out a lot of the big one-shots that are just one-tapping people before the game is ultimately going to release, which I think is good. This wasn't one-tapping people, so this is getting rebuffed. It's also getting rebuffed in PvE. For monks, Shado-Pan is finally getting some attention. For Windwalker specifically, you're getting quite a significant buff with efficient training, getting damage increased by 15% to 20%, damage modifiers on your Tiger Palm, Expel Harm, Crackle, Keg Smash, Tiger Palm, Crackle, Spinning Crane Kick, damage modifiers look like a 5% buff across everything here. And then Flurry Strikes is getting a significant buff with the amount of energy that you need to spend being reduced from 400 to 300 and getting an attack power increase on the benefits from 50 to 65%. High impact, enemies who die within 10 seconds of Flurry Strikes will explode, so giving you a little bit of a leeway in dungeon scenarios. Not going to be a big deal in PvP for this one specifically. And also buffing your armor penetration, which is going to be a big one benefit in PvP. Because generally attacking play targets is generally not great for Windwalker monks, so that's a nice little buff here. Windwalker getting quite a bit of attention. One versus many, damage of Fists of Fury is getting buffed here by 10 to 15%, and Keg Smash from 30 to 35, so just big buffs all around. Wisdom of the Wall is also getting a buff here, with Flurry Strikes deal 160% of attack power, up from 100 as shadow damage to all uncontrolled enemies within 6 yards. Really big buffs for you. Now, Holy Paladins, you are not so happy. And there's other classes as well that are not so happy with these round changes, but Holy Light is getting a nerf here from 400 to 380%, and it's not surprising as Holy Paladin is overperforming a Mythic Plus, but it means that in PvP that Druid is just getting even further ahead of you, and Preservation is getting even further ahead of you. So, I don't think we see any PvP modifiers that counteract these. These are just the game as a whole. It looks like you're getting nerfed an additional maybe 6% on Judgment, Hammer of Wrath, a lot of your damage abilities, Consecration, Eternal Flame, and Word of Glory, Crusader Strike as well, a little bit of a modifier here. It looks like 25 down to 13. That seems like a very significant nerf to a lot of your damage abilities. And I can't say in PvP that like Holy Paladin damage was like the main thing standing out as far as being like really OP. So it's going to be pretty devastating, I think, for Holy Paladin with these changes coming through. And Holy Shock is also getting nerfed. It's only going to do 108% spell damage to enemies, down from 120. And it is only going to heal for 226, down from 251. So Holy Shock, big nerf. Light of Dawn as well, getting a nerf from 126 down to 120%, and Merciful Auras is going from 17 to 15% of your spell power. Well, it seems like almost everything is just getting nerfed on Holy Paladin. Truth Prevails, Judgment is going to heal you for 270, down from 300. And then Tears Deliverance also getting nerfed from 39% of your spell power to 35% of your spell power. Now, Retribution Paladins are getting a buff for PvP specifically. Eternal Flame is getting a 3.4 modifier. It was previously 1 for 1. It now means that it's 3.4 times stronger, I think, in PvP. So you're going to have probably very significant healing with this specifically, and that seems to be a PvP only change, unlike all these changes for Paladin are just the entire game as a whole. For Herald of the Sun, though, we are seeing a bit of a nerf here. Radiant damage from 400 down to 360% of spell power. And then casting Wake of Ashes, radiant damage, same change. Reading here, Eternal Flame is getting nerfed baseline, 96% down to 91. But this PvP mod, but it's half as strong in PvP. This is a very confusing change. The PvP modifier is 3.4, but then here it's 0.6. This is a very confusing amount of changes here. I'm assuming this means it's buffed. I'll have to play some ret to actually see here because I haven't seen a lot of ret on the beta. Holy Shock, Light of the Dawn, critical strike chance for the target to be healed an additional 54%, down from 60. Even more nerfs to Holy. Sun's Avatar, damage to enemies from 18% down to 16%. Big nerfs there. This tier's deliverance change, I think, is the same one that we just read earlier up there. Holy Prism also getting nerfed. 700 or 240 down to 216, 350 down to 315, 700 down to 630, and 140 down to 126. So big nerfs there. Rogue, this isn't the big one for you, Rogues. I don't even know if this is a change or not. It says King's Bane, and they changed some apply aura effects here, but they're actually taking Kidney Shot and changing it, which we'll get to in a moment. A big change. And this is where the change comes in, where I was talking about, like, I don't know if somebody fell asleep on the button or not, because they buffed Agony by, I think somebody said on Twitter, like 40%. But then on these changes over here that they did an hour later, they nerfed it again by 40%. So I don't know if somebody fell asleep on the buff button, but you're not getting that Agony buff. It's not happening. And Kidney Shot, though, is going to a 30-second cooldown. And this is baseline in the whole game, so you will be affected in PvE. But in PvP, we just saw Gouge go up from 20 to 25. Kidney is going up from 20 to 30. I'd say that this negatively affects probably Outlaw the most, but possibly even... maybe not, actually. Maybe Assassination in PvP is probably the least affected, because you, for the most part, just put Ruptures up. But this is the first big change. Now, it does say MS reduced from 1 to 0, which would assume that it's off global. But from the testing I've seen so far in the beta, it's not. And so I don't know if this is a change that hasn't been put in or not. And that's a compensating thing. You know, it's off Kidney DR, so you like do some other crazy crowd control shenanigans because it's off DR. But they're actually nerfing the CC effects. Which is really core to why Rogue is so powerful, right? Like, you remember how many tournaments Rogues have been dominant, right? These types of changes could really put a wrench in the plan for a lot of Rogue players in those situations. Now, for Discipline Priest, I don't know what these are for the... They've removed some flagging going on, proc chance changes, but Shadow looks like it's getting a buff. Mind Spike is getting a significant damage buff, 88% up to 132%. Surge of Insanity can accumulate now up to 4 charges, up from 2. So you can get big Mind Flays and Mind Spikes, 4 of them in a row instead of 2 of them in a row, if you have enough Devouring Plagues to be able to do that, which could be really bursty, which is what Shadow was really lacking. And then I think we see like a bunch of aura changes here, and they've removed a bunch of aura changes, but it doesn't say the exact value on it, so it's a bit confusing. Now, Mind Flay is getting buffed from 264% to 396%. So a lot of your single target and burst is being raised for Shadow, probably because its AoE is so good in Mythic Plus, so they're bringing up your single target. Now, the PvP modifier is getting reduced a little bit alongside with this. It was 1.16, now it's down to 1. So it's not getting the full value of this buff, but it's likely getting at least some. And I think the stacking up to 4 charges in a row of Mind Spike or Mind Flay potentially could actually be really bursty and interesting and fun to play with. Cenarius might got nerfed. This one got buffed literally like last week, I think, and now it's getting nerfed back down from 12 to 10 for Druids running Cenarius's Might. Aura changes, and then the Exterminate change that we already covered. So they pushed through a lot of changes through on this one specifically towards a lot of throughput with Holy Paladin and PvE situation, but it's also going to be affected in PvP, and some really big CC changes when it comes to Rogue that could be really game breaking, especially because I think Rogue is likely going to be the strongest melee given that casters are in the position that they're in, and their tournament history, their track record with how many tournaments we've seen Rogues in. This could be a opportunity maybe for another melee DPS to possibly snag one of those positions in terms of representation. Either way, I just wanted to keep you guys updated with this because this one came out of left field. Wasn't expecting an update or a patch video for today, but we've got it, recovered it. You know what's going on, and we're going to continue testing and update the tier lists accordingly as well. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that. Other than that, thank you very much for watching the video. I will see you in the next one.